Hello and welcome along. This video is to show you how to make the bird box. So I'm going to take you through this step by step. There's a few things that you might like to get out first, and you can hear one of mine clanking away. You might want a ruler, a pencil, you may want an eraser, a pair of scissors. I'm using my paper snips. A bone folder is optional, and I'm also using Tombow multi-purpose adhesive or your choice of adhesive, but this works really well. Okay, so set those things just to one side and I'll show you how we get started. So this is the main piece of the box. If I grab a little kind of pro forma bit of it, this is what we're aiming to make first, is actually the box itself. So let's get started with that. So I'm going to start off by cutting little V shapes along the score lines and up to the horizontal score line. Now this is the bottom of your box. You can just do straight cuts up, but I find doing a little tiny V there, V shape, helps you to fold it nice and neatly. So that's that. Now, before we actually put this box together, I want to do part of the decoration because it's easier to do it flat. We'll do all the pretty stuff with the birds and things at the end, but this is actually just the bit for the construction. It's best to decorate this bit first. So this is what you're going to reach for from your kit. If you haven't already, I hope you have seen the introduction video. I should have said that right at the beginning, just to say if you're not sure what any bits in your kit are, I did in the introduction video go through that, so pop back and look at that if any of this is confusing. But these are the pieces that you're going to need first. Now when you're decorating, the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to pop our piece of basic grey onto the back of the piece with the aperture, the piece with the hole cut out. And this is an embossed piece. Now you might have different embossing than I am using. I'm using a basket weave one. You might have one of the other embossing folders. There are lots that look good on this project, so whichever one your demonstrator has decided to use, but I'm using this lovely basket weave one. So we've glued that onto the back. Now we want to glue this down. Now just one little tip, you want the front of the box, so this is our front, you want that to be, when you're making it, in the panel. You've got two pieces here, then a narrow one and then a wide one, and you want it between those two narrow ones there. These are the sides, here's the front, and this one here is the back. It's not absolutely critical, but it does make it a little bit neater when it's fully constructed if you do that. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue around our early espresso frame. Now again, I have cut this with the stitched shapes, my absolute favourite of the stitched dies. They were the first ones we have, and I still use those all the time, and they are in our current catalogue. So if you don't already have those, you're going to love those. Ask your demonstrator about those. You might see that slightly different from your demo, but that is fine. It will work whatever. I do like those stitch shapes. Okay, so I'm going to put glue all over the back of that and then press that down. Now Tombow glue gives you, as you probably know, a little bit of wiggle room when you put things down to get it lined up. When we are sticking an embossed piece, especially something that's heavily embossed like this, not every single bit is going to make contact with the card below. So it does take just a moment more than usual, I would say, to get that glued down. Just a little tiny bit more patience than normal, as Tombow glue does usually stick super fast, but just give that a good press down to make sure it doesn't lift anywhere at the edges. I'm just reaching for a tissue because I can see a little bit of glue squirting out there. Now the next pieces that you are looking for are strips of cardstock, and these are going to decorate the panels. And we've got one there. And the other panel that you want to decorate is the one next to the front. The end one, as you'll see, is where we're going to actually put the box together. So that's those decorated. Now those may or may not be embossed, but they're not on mine. Didn't feel that needed it. Right, so now we are going to actually glue this box together. So I'm folding all those score lines, and you can, if you wish, give them a little bit of a burnish down with your bone folder. Just makes them a little bit more crisp. And we'll do that across the bottom as well. Right, now the easiest way I find to put boxes together is if I fold this piece down here, so there's our side and there's our spare overlap piece. I'm going to put glue on there, and then I'm going to fold that in so that it meets the edge. It gives you that wiggle room with the Tombow to get that perfectly lined up. And there we go. There's our box piece. Now we're going to do the inside pieces. I'm going to flap the sides down first, and then the back, and glue along there, and then the front, and that gives you a nice neat finish on the front. Turn that over, and using the end of my bone folder, give that a good press down on the inside. And that is the main construction of our box done. So we'll set that aside and start with the lid. Now let's have a look at the pieces that you're going to need for the lid / roof of our bird box. So the first piece you're going to look for is this one here. It's got the score lines top and bottom, and then down the middle there. And then you need these two pieces here, and these are going to make the triangular portions of the roof. And how we're going to do that is to take a pencil and I'm drawing a diagonal line corner to corner on those two pieces. And then taking paper snips or your favourite scissors. I love paper snips. We are going to cut those in half, and this will form the front and the back of your roof and the decorative panels for that. There we go. So there's our pieces and there's our panels, and they're going to go on there. So I'll just glue those on straight away, so we're not having to try and do that with the box assembled. Whenever you can do something flat, it tends to be easier to glue pieces flat than to glue them when they're all assembled into a shape. On the other hand, there are some bits that you just have to do once it's assembled. It kind of makes more sense that way. Okay. Right, okay. Now the next piece we need to do is to cut on this roof little V's again up to the score line. We're going to do that both sides. And then we're going to stick these on. Now this is quite important, so watch the shape that you're making. And here's our roof piece. So I'm going to pop one there, and I'm going to put the other one there. Now these triangles are equal in that they are, you can switch them around, so there isn't a right or a left one or anything like that, but you do need these to be diagonally opposite like this, and you need their longest side and there's probably a word like hypotenuse or something that describes that, but their longest side needs to be facing outwards, not, you don't want that inwards. So you'll kind of see it because it's the right size to fit, but that's where we want to attach those. So I'm going to put some glue on there. We've got a little corner that we're going to trim off. We've got corners to trim off as we assemble this. We're going to do that one first, then bring this round. Perhaps I'll put it on the, so I don't overdo it on the corner. Put it down there, and then that piece there, and again that should be the exact width. Okay. Now once those are stuck, you can trim off the initial two corners. There's one, and there's the other. And then we're going to fold these pieces down. And you can see that this now is how that roof is going to go together. Now you might want to go ahead and trim those corners before you stick, or you might find it easier to trim them after, whichever makes more sense for you, so that they will be neat. So that's how our roof is going together. Now I talked to you a little bit about the other pieces that you might want to decorate before this is fully assembled. One of the things that I found was quite nice to do was to put these pieces here on. Now these are going to be the apex of the roof. Let me bring one in here, and this is the apex piece. I've got mine fully decorated here of the roof. Now at this point, if you want to, you can daub the edges. So if you want to, you can go ahead and daub. Now this is not required, but it is optional. So I will show you that. So I'm going to take a sponge. I'm just using a quarter of Stampin' sponge here, and I'm going to use some soft suede ink. You could use crumb cake as well, and I'm going to just roughly chop these pieces. And you're going to need 4 pieces about that length. Now I'm just chopping these up, as you can see, very roughly, because they're going to hang down, and again we'll trim those off afterwards. If you want to know, they're about 3.5 inches, so if you want to measure, cut them to start off with about 3.5 inches. And all the other pieces, we will save those because they are going to make the tile pieces on the roof. Okay, so if you wish to daub and have a little bit more of a vintage look to your birdhouse, this is the time. And I'm just going a little bit round the edges with these, and you will see over the next bit of construction I am going to get quite inky inking up the roof tiles as well, and I'm going to show you the slower way or the quicker way to do the tile, and you can decide which is the way for you. And if you've got lots of time on your hands, you can do the slow way, because I think it probably gives a slightly better effect, but we'll see. Right, and I've got a few bits of, that's all right, it came off. Do you ever do that? Do you ever make those noises? I've got a few little bits of sponge on there, but we got away with it, so that's all right. Okay, so I'm going to decorate my my roof piece now while this is flat. So where these are going is down here. And then I'm going to have one coming in the other direction. You can go right to the top, or you could do it from there, if you see what I mean. But just have it, and again they will just be coming off the edge. There. And we can trim those straight. And again, this is why putting them together putting them together at this point can be a good idea, because you are being able to trim without the whole thing being constructed. So let's do the others. The other thing is, you get to decide, you know, sometimes one side looks better than the other, so you get to decide what's going to be front and what's going to be back before you actually put it together. So I'm going to put a bit of glue up there. We'll go all the way with this one as well. There we go, and then trim those pieces off. And then if you wish to, you can go back in with a sponge and just sponge those bottom pieces. And as I say, this is totally optional. You do not have to do that. It's only if you wish to. Right, the next piece of the puzzle is the tile. And the tiles that I have made, I made with these little strips. And I cut them at about 1/2 inch, but I would say you do not have to be that accurate with it, because it looks quite rustic if you have them some slightly bigger, some slightly smaller. I'm going to show you how I did these. Now I'm showing you first of all just cutting as we go. You'll have a couple of bits left over. So you're going to start down at the bottom, and you want this hanging just a little bit off the bottom of the roof. Now, when you build the tiles, the best way, I'm going to put some Tombow glue along there for our first layer, is to have them curling up just a tad. And this is what I'm talking about with how much time you want to take over this. So you can do what I've done here and just curl them a little as you go. You can curl and sponge as you go. And I'm just overlapping those just a little bit. Or you can just curl them and put them on and then do all the sponging at the end. And that is my slightly quicker way. Now I think individual sponging, you will get a slightly better effect. And then I'm going to build these up. Now what I quite like to do is to have a little bit of overlap on these, so the edges are not all perfectly lined up. So I'm going to have this one come over a bit further. It's a little bit too lined up for my liking. I'm going to just move that across a little bit. Maybe I'll go back the other way. No, that's okay. You can see there's some decision making involved. And then a little bit of glue there, and that one like so, and just to try not to have those exactly lined up each time. And there's our tile. I'm going to go ahead and build this up, but what I'm going to do on the other side is just show you a slightly cheatier way, as I say. So the first is I'm going to give this a little curl, so I've already got some curl in it before I chop. I'm still going to chop. Oops, that wasn't very straight, but it doesn't matter. There we go, and some more, and some more. And what you can do is to do a combination of tear and tape and Tombow, so that you've got some sticky down there already, and then you probably are going to need to put some more Tombow in as you go. But tear and tape and Tombow are quite good friends. They do work quite well together. So this will speed the process up somewhat as we go. Let's just take it off at this end. And do start from the bottom and work up to the top, because we've got, in your pack, you've got a little ridge piece that you're going to put onto the top when you've finished. So with my slightly curled ones, they're only a little bit curled, so but I'm going to just pop those on. One, oops. Try not to stick your fingers on at the same time. And 2 and 3. Now when you put the next layer down, you might want to put some Tombow just across here, but you will be partially on the Tombow and partially on that tear and tape, so it'll just help, sorry, was that off the camera? It'll just help speed things up a little bit for you as you go. You might want a bit of tape, you might get away without it. I'm just giving those more of a curl and build it up. Right, I shall speed some of this up or cut some of this out for you, because to be honest, that is going to be a bit dull to watch, and then I will come back and show you how I put all of the sponging onto the top at the same time. Right, well, I've got to that place there. Let me just see if my roof tile is going to fit. So you don't need to go right to the very edge. And you might have seen me doing a little bit of this as I went along, but just lifting those curled pieces, and just helps them lift a little bit. And now we're going to sponge them. So I'm going to sponge them in both directions, downwards and upwards. And do it quite gently, because you don't want to pull them back off, but you want to get that ink in, because it makes, can you see, it makes quite a lot of difference. You don't have to do this, as I said, this is optional, but I think it makes a lot of difference if you can get some ink into those, onto those tiles. And onto your fingers, of course, because that's always very important too. And then I'm going to sponge my ridge tile as well. And we will pop that on in a moment. So the next thing to do is to go and wash my fingers. Right, so we've got the worst of the sponging ink off there. So let's put this together. So glue along these pieces here, on these, along these flaps that we have. And then we're going to lift this up and pop it together. And you can see how that roof works. And pop it together there. Just put a little tad of glue on there. And there we go. There's our little roof. Doesn't it look cute? Now, in order to make this go to, let's do the roof, do our tile at the top. And I'm just going to press that onto the tear and tape. Again, you might want to put a little bit of Tombow underneath there as well. But that's stuck quite well. So that's our little roof tile at the top. Now, in order for this to go on, it will just sit. I mean, it will sit on the top, but we want it to be able to hinge open and closed. So we want a hinge that's going to go inside the box, and that's what this piece is here. And I'm going to suggest, again, you could use Tombow or you can use tear and tape for this. For the purposes of the video and hopefully getting this done first time, I'm using tear and tape, but to be honest, Tombow is probably a safer option because you can wiggle it a little bit if you need to. So I'm going to start on the inside of the box, and I'm going to put that bend, that piece there. What's the word I'm looking for here? The fold. I'm going to put the fold lined up with the top there. Okay, so it looks like that. Then I'm going to bring my box in. Now you don't want this to go right down here because otherwise you'll have the box like that. So where you're wanting this to go is so that the box is central, and this has got a little bit of fiddly wiggling involved because you need to sort of press it roughly where you want to be, check that's right. You're doing it with Tombow, as I say, you don't need to be right first time, you can wiggle it, but there you go, and there is your hinged box. Pretty. Now decoration is going to be different depending on which stamp set you are working with. I today am, for this video, am using Free as a Bird, but you may be using Birds and Branches. So if you're using Birds and Branches, I'm going to get you to refer to the photographs of the Birds and Branches options, but we're going to go ahead today and I'm going to show you the Free as a Bird option. Right, so as I said, I'm using Free as a Bird, and the images that I use to decorate this are this little bird here, a couple of, I think we've used 3 of the big flowers, 1 of the little buds, and 2 or 3 lots, I think, of the leaves. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp those, and then we can colour them. Now you should have a piece of Whisper White to work with in there, and so there's our bud. We have flowers. Now you can do these any colour you wish. This is your project, and if you're doing your stamping, you can stamp and you can colour in any way that you like. I really like stamping blends, so I'm going to do a bit of colouring with blends. Now, as I said, it doesn't matter which colours you use. I have got on hand, I'm going to use the ivory to do the majority of the birds. So I'm going to start off, just make sure he's in shot. I'm going to start off colouring in, and I'm going to fussy cut him out. So I'm not worrying too much about the edges there. Now the other thing you can do if you don't have blends or markers or other colouring media in the right colour for this bird is you can just sponge him. That is another way to get the colour on. And you also can do a combination of the two, which is what I'm going to do. I'm just adding a little bit of the darker colours to the edge. I've left a little bit of white right on the middle, and then I'm going back over and blending those darker and lighter pieces in. I'm going to take a little Mango Melody for his beak. And I'm going to do my leaves, and I'm using Granny Apple Green. I do like a nice vibrant green, and as you can see, I wasn't kidding when I said you can go over the edges, because if you're fussy cutting, you don't need to worry about those edges because you're going to cut them out. And I'll put a little bit of the darker Granny Apple Green just at the base of those leaves. And you can spend a lot longer. I'm sure you are beautifully good at colouring, and so you can spend a lot longer on those if you wish. You can use watercolour pencils if you're stamping in StazOn. You can use inks, and as I say, you can use blends. So I'm going to colour the flowers on this one. I am going to do these in the Highland Heather, and go over in the light. original samples. I did this in the Retired Lovely lipstick, which also looks nice. So again, choose the flowers that you, choose the colours that you like and use those. And then again, go over those and blend that light and dark together. Oh, I forgot my bud. I'll go back in and do that one. Now I have a little bit of fun fussy cutting to do here. Now if you happen to be using, let's just get him out. If you happen to be using the new Birds and Branches, there is a die set with that, so you might have chosen to have dies, and therefore you might not be joining us in the fussy cutting. But if you are, it's not too tricky with this one to cut out. And I imagine with the, although as I'm filming I haven't quite got it yet, but I imagine with the Birds and Branches not too difficult either. And just with the bird, I'm just giving him a little bit of extra of the brown around the edge, and there he is. And now I'm going to go ahead and cut these out. Easiest way is to move the paper, not the scissors, as I'm sure you know. And if you leave me to this, I will speed this up or cut some of this out so you don't have to watch me do this for a long time. Right, so here we go. Here are all our fussy cut pieces. And of course you can decorate this any way you wish. You do not have to follow what I'm doing specifically, but I'm going to pop some of these up with dimensionals and others I'm going to glue down. So the bird, I'm definitely going to pop him up. I'm popping him up on the, using the big dimensionals on his actual body, and I want him to go across so that his feet are falling down at the bottom there of the ring. And then I'm going to have some of the leaves going across, sort of on, beneath, underneath his feet just a little. And I am going to glue those, glue this big piece down so that this doesn't move about, become detached, because we want him to be able to show he's standing. Right, so that's that piece there. That's one leaf, and then another going in the other direction. Put that underneath his tail and coming through there. So that's, oops, that is glued down. And then I'm going to take a mini dimensional, and if I can find my little bud, here it is. I'm going to pop the little bud on. I've left a little bit of a longer stem on this because I wasn't quite sure where that was going to go, but I think I'll pop him just under there, sticking nicely onto my finger. There we go. So I'll pop that one under there. Up at the top, I'm going to do some of the flowers to decorate the front. So one right in the middle, one I'm going to glue on. We'll glue on some leaves. And another dimensional over that little gluey patch that I've created. And I'll just pop another little flower in there. And of course you can do this any way you wish. As I say, my original one I had done with the lipstick, but you do what you what you like in terms of your colours. Take a look at the option for the birds and branches. That does come with a branch, so you might find that you're using a branch at the bottom rather than leaves, but yeah, different look that you can get with each one, and both of them equally beautiful. So I hope you have enjoyed the bird box video, and I will be back with a video for the cards.